What's going on, everybody? Lucas Wenzel back again for Fantasy Pros. Welcome into the channel. Today we're going to be talking about 10 players on the waiver wire I am looking to stash ahead of this weekend's slate and ahead of next week's waivers as well. But before we dive into any of that, if you want your chance at winning a signed Justin Jefferson Minnesota Vikings jersey, courtesy of our friends over at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now and comment below on this video. That is it. That is all you need to do. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize when we announce it. Let's start with one of the hotter names in the fantasy football community recently, and it's Kyron Williams, rookie running back for the Los Angeles Rams, who's rostered in 18% of leagues, and he's going quick. With news of Cam Akers and the organization looking to part ways, Williams could quickly find himself in an important role in this Los Angeles Rams offense. There were rumors swirling around over the summer that he could even potentially supplant Akers as the lead running back for this team, and Jordan Rodrigue of The Athletic expects the 5th-round rookie to have a quote-unquote big role once he comes off the IR. Remember though, Kyron Williams is flying off waivers rapidly, so make sure you snag him now while the Rams are on bye and before he makes his return. Jameson Williams made my stash list 2 weeks ago, and he lands on it once again this week. He isn't quite ready to be activated off of the NFI list yet, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't stash him now while he's still available in nearly 70% of leagues. The man's talent is undeniable, and had it not been for his ACL injury, Williams likely would have been the first wide receiver taken in the 2022 draft class. His 1,572 receiving yards was knocking on the door of top 50 all-time for a single season in college football his senior year. Head coach Dan Campbell did come out and say earlier this week that Jameson Williams would play this season, so now it's just a matter of when he plays. Stash him now, though, if he's still available on your waivers, so you're not battling waiver priorities later or higher fab bids. Next, we have another running back who's getting ready to come off the IR, and it's Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens, who's rostered in 19% of leagues. There's very little certainty with the Ravens' backfield right now. J.K. Dobbins looked great in his return, but he only played 40 snaps in Week 5, and his knee tightened up according to head coach John Harbaugh in Week 6, so he only played 27% of the snaps. Kenyan Drake became a last-minute pivot since the team was also without Justice Hill due to a hamstring injury. If Dobbins' knee continues to flare up, the Ravens could continue to implement a committee backfield with Gus Edwards as the backup. In his last full season in 2020, Gus's true yards per carry was 4.8, which was 7th best in the league, and he was 12th in yards per touch. There's opportunity waiting for Edwards, so let's get ahead of the curve here and stash him now. Nico Collins made my stash list last week, and his roster percentage hasn't changed. So here again, he makes the list. I get not wanting to roster a player on their bye week, but Nico Collins has a great 2-week stretch here coming out of the bye against the Raiders and the Titans, who are both top 12 in fantasy points per game allowed to the wide receiver position this year. His snap counts have increased every week this year, playing 81% of the snaps in Week 5 against the Jaguars before his bye. His average depth of target is 15 yards, which is 11th best, and he's averaging 18 yards per reception, which is top 10. This might be one of your last chances to stash him, so let's do it now. This next player has had a Jekyll and Hyde nature to his volume this year. Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns, is rostered in 12% of leagues. Peoples-Jones has played between 78 and 88% of the snaps in every game this year and has seen 7+ targets in 3 out of 5 games. He's getting targeted on a ton of his routes too, over 31% of them, which is 11th amongst wide receivers. This Cleveland Browns defense hasn't given teams a ton of resistance so far, and they could find themselves in favorable game script for Peoples-Jones more often than we realize. The volume and snaps are there. Let's get him stashed on your team. We've seen Russell Wilson use his tight ends a surprising amount this year, and after his performance on Sunday, Greg Dulcich should find a way onto your bench. Albert Okwuegbunam was a healthy scratch against the Chargers, which paved the way for Dulcich to see 41 snaps, which was 71%. No other tight end came close to seeing that many snaps. The most encouraging part though, Dulcich ran 20 routes on those 41 snaps. You'd like to see more than 3 targets, but the Broncos clearly wanted him on the field in his first game back, and that could be a major sign of things to come, especially in the desolate wasteland of tight ends in fantasy football. Christian Watson hasn't been the dynamic, high-excitement player we had hoped for when he came out of North Dakota State University, but it's time to get speculative. He's rostered in only 4% of leagues, and Randall Cobb is now expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks with an ankle injury. Romeo Doubs and Allen Lazard have been the main threats at receiver for the Packers, but should Watson bounce back from his hamstring injury this week, we could see some of Cobb's snaps and targets filter to Watson. Let's not forget, this dude has game-breaking intangibles as well. 98th percentile speed, 97th percentile catch radius, 95th percentile burst. He's a speculative stash with tons of upside should targets fall his way. Sometimes the best time to stash players is when they're on bye because your league mates either drop them or aren't considering adding them. Kenneth Gainwell, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, is rostered in only 19% of leagues. So far, it's been the Miles Sanders show for the last undefeated team in the league, but coming out of the bye, there's opportunity for multiple running backs in this offense to get involved like we saw week 1 against Detroit. The Eagles get Pittsburgh, Houston, Washington, Indianapolis, and Green Bay their first 5 games after the bye. This is by no means a promise of Kenny Gainwell being more involved, but Miles Sanders hasn't played a full season since 2019, so stashing a guy like Gainwell in this high-powered Eagles offense could pay dividends down the road. I talked about getting speculative with Christian Watson earlier, but now it's time to really get speculative. In case you didn't know, Deshaun Jackson was signed to the Baltimore Ravens practice squad on Tuesday, and he has a legitimate chance to suit up on Sunday. Rashad Bateman returned to practice this week, but only in limited fashion as of this recording. Devin Duvernay was also sidelined on Wednesday for reasons unknown at the time of this recording as well. When it comes to stashing players though, we want the high upside, and if the Ravens bring Deshaun Jackson up to the active roster for Sunday, he has a chance to make a splash against the Browns, who are allowing the 13th most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. Lastly, it's worth chatting about this tight end given the state of his team's pass catchers. Daniel Bellinger of the 5-1 New York Giants is rostered in 13% of leagues. He played a whopping 94% of snaps on Sunday after seeing those snaps increase from 48 to 74% in the previous 5 weeks. He also scored double-digit fantasy points the past 2 weeks by finding the end zone. Kadarius Toney still seems to be a ways from returning. Other wide receivers like Richie James and Darius Slayton haven't made a major impact. Wan'Dale Robinson was a hand-selected piece by this new leadership regime, but they'll need somebody else to make a weekly impact outside of him and Saquon Barkley. The tight end wasteland in fantasy football is rarely brimming with upside, but Bellinger boasts some after his previous 2 weeks. Alright y'all, before I get out of here, remember, if you want your chance at winning a signed Justin Jefferson Minnesota Vikings jersey, courtesy of our friends over at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel right now and comment below on this video. Maybe you totally agree with the waiver stash and found it super helpful, maybe you totally disagree, but that is it. That is all you need to do. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize when we announce it.
Thanks for tuning in to the FantasyPros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos, and while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at FantasyPros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.